PR Connections Radio presents. This episode of the PR Connections podcast is brought to you by Classy Communications PR and Advertising. Classy Communications provides public relations and marketing solutions for businesses, professionals, and non-profit organizations. They can deliver the true meaning of your business with press releases, social media marketing, web development, email marketing, book publishing, and much more. Wherever your potential clients are, they can help you connect with them. Visit classycommunications.net to learn more about their suite of services that can help your business stand out from the rest. Classy Communications is your solution for business success.
Hello there, and welcome to the Sunday Morning Chat Series with Jesse Oakley III. And this is your host, Jesse Oakley III. And the purpose of the Sunday Morning Chat Series is for yours truly to ask a plethora of positive questions that the people that are making big differences in the community, whether they're speakers, leaders, authors, writers, entertainers, athletes, whatever they are. You'll hear from them first right here on the Sunday Morning Chat Series with Jesse Oakley III. And today, we have ourselves a wonderful episode for you. And many people know that I belong to a wonderful organization called Toastmasters International. And there have been so many people that I'm amazed with that I meet in this organization. And you get to hear from one of them today here in the Sunday Morning Chat Series. And I've known this gentleman for quite a while. And when I think of wonderful people, when I think of people making big differences in the community, when I think of fantastic people, and this guy, I keep asking myself, how the heck can I not have this guy on the Sunday Morning Chat Series? He is truly phenomenal, and oh my goodness, I'm excited to get a chance to interview him. So please, without further delay, help me welcome past region advisor, distinguished Toastmaster Rob Christeson. Hey, Rob, how's it going?
Doing well, thanks, Jesse. Glad to be here.
All right, great to be here. And with that being said, are you ready to go?
Sure.
All right, without further delay, let's chat. Now, first thing is, everybody had their own start within Toastmasters, their own day one in this organization. Could you please tell the happy people out there, what was your day one like joining Toastmasters?
You know, my start came while I was on active duty in the U.S. Air Force. I was sitting down with my chief, like a lot of my stories, sitting with somebody who I respected as a leader, in this case, a chief back at McConnell Air Force Base. And we were discussing the potential of our retirements eventually, and talked about this thing that you civilians do called job interviews. And we were thinking about, man, we got to do something to kind of prep ourselves up, right? And the chief looked at me, he says, "Hey, Rob, you know what? We should join Toastmasters." And what he meant was, you should join Toastmasters. So I went out and found a club that was not far from the base. It was actually sponsored by Boeing at the time, and now it's Spirit Aerosystems. The club's now called the Aero Achievers, Club 3990 in Wichita. I went to visit their club the next week. It was right after work, so I was still in my blues and name tag and ribbons and everything on, And I walked through the door, and everybody's like, "Oh, look at him," But it turned out there were a number of people in there who were veterans, and of course, working right adjacent to the base. They were very familiar with the military community. They welcomed me in. It was funny, the first meeting I went to, when you asked about the first day, the first meeting I went to, the first speaker in the Toastmaster meeting took her shoes off before she spoke, because she said, "I can't speak in shoes." And I thought, okay, this is interesting. The second speaker was doing one of those interview projects out of one of the advanced projects. So two people sitting in chairs doing an interview. And then the third was some off the wall speech as well. And I thought, what did I walk into? Right? Because this did not, like, how am I going to practice for interviews without my shoes on? Or, I had no idea. So when I came back the next week, I saw like 3 regular speeches this week. And I thought, okay, I can do this. I'll join this group. And so it was a great experience. I was with that club all the way through my district director year, and led to me actually doing a whole lot better in job interviews than I thought I would, making this transition. And ended up here in where I'm at now is Overland Park, Kansas. And that's why I kind of transitioned to a different club. But that was my initial experience. Yeah.
All right. That truly sound very amazing and quite interesting. Definitely those first experiences within Toastmasters. And I tell you what, that's quite the story, my friend. That's quite the story.
Mm-hmm.
Now, another question I do have for you is, we have many things that we're doing within Toastmasters community right now. And what are you doing in the Toastmasters community that's making a big difference right now as we speak?
Oh, okay. Um, well, I stuck in the title here under my name that I'm actually the district transition chair for the new District 209, which is combining districts 16, 22, and 24, and a part of 43,
Ah,
essentially Nebraska, Kansas, Western Missouri, Oklahoma, and northwestern Arkansas. I haven't made a big difference yet because it's just starting out. So that's not one thing that I can call that I made a difference in, but we have a lot of work to do over the next few months to get prepared for this transition. A couple other things that I'm working on. I'm working with my club growth team. I'm the demo team chair for my home district, which, we've already had 2 demos this year so far. We have a couple more scheduled in the next few months. And so that's been a good way that I can help relieve a little pressure off the club growth director, but it's not a lot of work. Luckily, it's a reasonable amount, to be able to help out. I'm also occasionally, like probably yourself as a past ID and a past RA, mentoring a couple of people that have asked for some one-off conversations to talk through things. And also, I managed to find my way onto the club officer training development team a few months ago. The person that was working on VP education slides had to step away. And so I was able to step in and help out in that. And so we just finished putting together the round 2 slides and we're doing beta testing. By the time you see this in January, we'll have beta tested to either 12, 13, 14 districts around the world, this new process. And they beta tested it before I joined the team for the first round back in July and August. And this second round, once this is done, the idea is to present all this to headquarters and for it to be available as soon as next year for implementation. So that's pretty exciting. I was really pretty lucky to get drafted onto that.
and I tell you what, and you talk about district the transition chair and myself and the
Mhm.
Toastmaster. One thing that I'm also doing too is I'm a district leadership committee chair for District
Okay.
202. So
Yeah.
District 202 is basically parts of Los Angeles, San Fernando Valley, up to Ventura County, up to Santa Barbara, up to San Luis Obispo, and that section of California. So I basically can understand what you're going through with the transition that's going on as well, and the chance to recruit leaders within District 202 and
Mhm.
in California. So it's good, definitely great that us past leaders, whether it be past RAs or past international directors or past anything, you actually get a chance to get in Toastmasters. It's basically the wise
Yes.
words of it's basically the wise words of Helen Blanchard. If you can get out of Toastmasters, what you can get out of Toastmasters, you will never
You'll
get out of
never get out of
Toastmasters.
Toastmasters.
And so again, it's great that leaders like us can actually still make a difference, a big difference to our community within Toastmasters. All right, now
Definitely.
definitely. Now the next question I have for you is when it comes to Toastmasters, whether it's somebody taking their shoes off their first meeting that you go to or anything else, we have gone through different challenges within this part of the organization. Now, when it comes to different challenges, what are the challenges that you face within this organization that you were able to overcome?
I think one challenge that happens to all of us, one thing that I've noticed, like when I talked about joining to improve my interview skills, I had some people give me some really good advice in my first club and allowed me to practice some things that made me feel not only more comfortable as a speaker, but even comfortable practicing some of those kind of interview answers to prep them in my head, right? And I feel like that really helped me out a lot. But sometimes it gets tough for some people to translate what they're doing in Toastmasters to real life. And they're thinking, okay, why is this speech 3 in level 1 matter to me being more confident in a staff meeting and speaking up? And as a VP education and as other leader roles like that, it's our jobs to help people with that translation, right? And for me, one of the challenges came when I was a division director. I was trying to think, this is 2009, which was during the recession. And I got laid off from that job that I got from joining Toastmasters a few years earlier. And so here I am, a division director. The market's rough. I'm trying to find work while trying to support the 3 areas in at a time in Wichita, Kansas, in my home division. And it was really pretty challenging because, you've got to take care of your life, but you've also got this commitment to Toastmasters you want to see through. And I was really fortunate. I tried. One of the things I did was I visited every club in my division while I was division director, and I talked to people and let them know, just, hey, FYI, if you know of anything in your company, just send me a note. And I would get emails constantly, and it actually led to me getting a job, funny enough, at the company where my main club was at, which, as I mentioned earlier, Spirit Aerosystems had taken things on from Boeing. I ended up at Spirit Aerosystems on a contract, not because I was into Toastmasters Club, But because I was in there, I knew people in there, which means I got internal references, and that helped me to land the interview to get that job. So that year, though, the whole time was like, I mean, the second half of the year really is when it happened, and that was just, so much to face, right? You just don't know. So
I tell you, Rob, and it's very interesting that you mentioned about 2009 and division governor. Back they were called division governors.
right.
Actually, we're probably around the same time, because in about '09, I believe the first half of '09, I was also division governor too in Vegas. And you mentioned that you visited the clubs, and all the clubs in your division. I did the same thing in my division too. And oh my goodness, talk about the way how certain things parallel with each other within
Hmm.
Toastmasters. And it's all about that connection. And I say this, when it comes to that connections, it is a beautiful thing to have when you visit all these clubs and these communities. And with these same connections I do have that I had before, when it comes to 2012, it was before I stepped in the role of district governor for District 33. I
Hmm.
had lots of it was at the point where I had lots of references to get promoted to where I am right now, being an associate engineer for the
Oh,
state of
nice.
Nevada. So I gave everybody to do that. And the cool part about this is the last week in June, I got promoted back in 2012, and then the week after that, I got married. talk about all the luck happening to one person.
No doubt.
So when you mention those stories and the references and everything else, it seems like that good parallel lining with each other. And I
Hmm.
tell you what, this is those things we do have in common, my friend.
Definitely.
All right. Now we have, and of course, speaking of marriage to that wonderful woman. Hi, Dana. Now we talk about the best moments. Now, what were some of the best moments you experienced within this wonderful organization during your time in Toastmasters?
I don't want to like fall into a trap of bragging. I just had a lot of good luck in the organization, and had a lot of fun stories. And like my division director year, other than what I told you about, like the visiting was a great experience, and I got to learn a lot. And I've always had good people, that helped either mentor me or were just there to answer a question and help me out. But I think one of the best moments I remember, right after I finished being what's now club growth director, and I was the PQD, my club growth director had scheduled a meeting with the VA to go and talk about having a Toastmaster club, and that VA director moved the meeting to a week that she was going to be out of town, and the
Hmm.
division director was going to run it. And she said, "Hey, Rob, can you go with the division director? I was going to go with her to help her out, but can you go?" And I was like, "Sure," obviously, right? So I talked to the division director in advance and kind of just did a little bit of prep, and the club growth director had already done a really great job of prep. We go to the meeting, and my goal is to smile and wave, right? I want to be the backup. I don't want to be trying to take over anything. And she did a fantastic job, right? She just absolutely crushed it. A couple times she looked over and I nodded, that's correct, or whatever. At the end of the meeting, things went really well. So we walk out, we're heading down to the parking lot. We get to the corner and we're about to go off in our separate ways to our cars. And I said, "Hey, and called her name out. I said, you did an absolutely fantastic job today. That was amazing. You answered his questions so well. He was engaged. He's ready to have the next step. And we've got a demo meeting planned. I just wanted to say thank you for doing such a great job." And she started to tear up. She actually started to almost cry. And I thought, oh no, did I say something wrong? What did I do? Did I try to go back to my head? Like, what did I say? I said, "I'm sorry. Did I say something wrong?" She goes, "No, Rob, you don't understand. No one ever tells me I do a good job." And I thought, how could that, to myself, I thought, how could that even be true? I just watched this person be a consummate professional. She had been division director for months, been an area director the year before, and I was club growth and in the same division, so I knew her before. It's like, man, that doesn't even make sense. But I realized it's actually true, right? And you probably seen this yourself. You've probably talked to people who say, at my job, the only recognition you get is when you work 5 years or 10 years, and they say thank you for being here 5 years. But some leaders are not good at saying good job. And it's not about just fluff and telling somebody, but like being specific and saying, here's what I thought you did so well that made such a difference, made a significant difference to that person. And I realized that's one of the powers that we have as Toastmasters, is kind of being able to not only do that for individuals, but perpetuate that on.
Whoa, that it goes to show you that a kind word, a good compliment, can go a long way. And you know what, it's reverted, but that answer, that story alone, stopped me right in my tracks. So it goes to show you, happy people, that kind word that's out there. it always makes a big difference because you never know what one is going through. And Rob just
Mhm.
gave you a great example on a value of a kind word. So again, Rob, that was truly amazing and truly fanatic and fantastic, I should say. And you made that person's day. And they give you for me that person's day. It shows you that you have the power to actually do it. And that was truly, I love hearing about that story, man. Whew. Now, let's say that the next question I do have for you is, let's say that you're meeting up with some Toastmasters at a different event, and there's a new Toastmaster out there looking at you, and they're amazed with the work that you've done within your journey. They come up to you and say, Rob, you impress me. You're a true inspiration, and I want to be like you, and I want to do what is out there to be in your shoes because you're inspiring me. You make me want to be the best Toastmaster I can be, and you are truly fantastic, and you are one of my true mentors and role models. And I really want to be in your shoes. And if someone were to tell you that at an event, what advice would you give that new Toastmaster?
That's a really good question. I think that, I remember being in that position myself. I think one of the first times I met an international director and I saw them at my district conference and I thought, whoa, that looks like a really cool job. But, I didn't know what it meant to get to that type of a level. And I would, if a person were to ask me that question, looking at me as a, a region advisor or, one of the other roles that I currently do, one thing I would think of is there's a really obvious answer that everybody uses, and I'm gonna mention it just because it's true, and that is get started, right? Like take the next step, and it's important to note because when I look back on my path to how I got here, that's not a straight line. I mean, it was a straight line for a couple of years, area, division, club growth, PQD, DD. I did those kind of in succession, but you don't have to do those in succession. But I think 4 or 5 years after my DD year before I became an RA, rather than
Mhm.
doing it like immediately. I
Yeah,
spent some
yeah.
time as a past district director. I competed a little bit. I did a couple other things, to help the district out and work like that. And then after being an RA, being on a couple of committees that I didn't even know existed before, and helping out in that regard. So get started. And I think the other thing is always look for similarities and not differences. And I say that because when I was in the club growth role, I went to my first convention in Connecticut, and this was the year before district leader training was at the convention event, right?
Right.
So
Right.
that Sunday and Monday, I actually went to Darren LaCroix's session. He's one of the world champions public speaking, and he had a session that talked about better speaking skills, marketing, and so forth. And there were so many things in his marketing lessons that I learned that applied to being a club growth director. To understanding your client, understanding your customer, and kind of having that sort of mentality. Some of the things that he taught us as club growth directors in our training, but hearing it from a different angle and a different perspective really made a positive difference to me. And then same thing with the others in the room. Ed Tate and Craig Valentine were in that particular session, and Ed's a really big training guy, and so many of the things that he taught made me a better trainer when it came to being not only a trio member but the PQD role as well. And so I'll hear some people say, "Oh, contest speaking is different than other speaking. So they're two different things. You if you working on one won't help you on the other." And I don't think that's true at all. I think that if you are laser focused on something, some other things can be a distraction, but you can definitely learn. Like I've learned a lot from those guys. I learned a lot from accredited speakers. I had Bob Huey was my co-RA my second year in Region 4. And just being in a room with that guy, right, is just unreal. Training together, just watching how he's able to interact with the room, his leadership experience, everything made such a positive impact on me. And I was a second year RA, and I'm like, oh, I need to do this differently, because there were so many things that I learned from him. So take those other opportunities. Don't get distracted and go off in 20 directions. But I didn't go off and try to be an accredited speaker, but I did go to one of their training sessions to learn the process and what things I could take from that. And I've interacted with them as well. And so, look for those similarities and things that you can do that help you move forward, but take that next step, become the area director or become the club officer. And then feel free to reach out to me as you're doing it for follow-up.
All right. It's definitely good advice there to give that young
Yeah.
Toastmaster. And you basically want to make that big difference. And that's truly wise words to definitely share for anybody. And not just young Toastmaster, but any Toastmaster in general. Now, another question I do have for you is, let's say there's someone out there that don't know where to first start, how to reach out to different Toastmasters, or where could they actually go to know more about this wonderful organization, especially within your community?
Yeah, when I moved up here and I joined one of the clubs locally in Overland Park, the first thing I did was they always tell us like people search for public speaking in the city. So I did the search to see what clubs came up. And then I also did a search on Toastmasters Overland Park to see what came up. And the clubs I ended up working in, being a part of initially, one of the things I helped do was make some adjustments to get them better SEO, because like one of them did appear on the first page of the results and the other one didn't. And there were only like 8 or 9 clubs in the town, Overland Park specifically. Like they should all fall to the first page, right? And the clubs in the next towns over should fall next, or that kind of thing. So help them a little bit with the SEO. And I would say, do that search, but I would give you a specific club if you were asking me, like depending on where you lived in your time, and,
Hmm.
and help you. And I've had people ask me that question, so I try to be informed about the clubs in my area specifically to let them know, like, oh, you're in Lenexa, which is one town over. There's a lunchtime club and a Monday club or whatever that where you live, or if you want to drive a little bit, there's a Thursday club, that kind of thing. So just being aware of my surroundings a little bit. I don't have it all memorized, but just knowing a couple, and then you can pull it up on your phone and show them and send them a link, something like that is what I would normally do when that happens. And that happened actually about a month ago. Somebody did that in a gym. I was carrying my Toastmaster water bottle, and the guy asked me about Toastmasters, and I showed him a link online, and he's like, oh, "Okay, thanks." I don't know that he went and visited a club, but at least I did give it a shot. So
Hey, that's all we can do is just give it a shot, and you never know what you might have a new member there. You might have someone that might spread the word of mouth, but all that big difference, whether it be that water bottle that you have or word of mouth, every communication does happen and it does matter. All right, now, exactly. Now this portion of the interview is a shout out portion, and it gives guests the chance to shout out the people that actually make the journey possible. So if you'd like to give a shout out to the people that make your journey possible, who would you like to give a shout out to?
man, that's a long list, because I've kind of gone out of my way to make as many connections as I can. And one thing I'll tell you, like you've experienced this too with the convention, with your first year at the convention. My first year at the convention, 2009, the sing along wasn't well known. It was one of
Hmm.
those things that you had to know somebody to get to go to the sing along. I mean, they weren't hiding it, but it just wasn't publicized.
Right.
So luckily, I met somebody who was like, "Hey, you want to go to the sing along?" And I went and I met Ted Cochran, and he's like an amazing Toastmaster. I've been able to interact with him over the years and get advice from him off and on, and he's just absolutely amazing. And other past national presidents like Lark Doley is my go-to for almost any like really difficult, like what do I do kind of situation. Pat Johnson, others as well. And I'd put this into like so many categories. Like I already mentioned some of the world champs that I've interacted with and kept in contact with and occasionally went to for help. Jim Key and Lance Miller, Mark Brown fall in that category as well. um, I hate that I might leave people out, when I say these things, but then I talked about like Bob Huey, and there's like obviously Cheryl Roush and other accredited speakers as well. um, Man, who else was I thinking of? Rochelle Rice is an accredited speaker, definitely. And then with headquarters staff, when you go to the convention, so that first experience in the convention, I volunteered to do what's now called Helping Hands, but back then it was called, I think, convention ambassador or something. And it was kind of,
Yep.
they accepted people kind of on the fly, and I just did 2 hours at the registration table because I wanted to see what registration looked like at a big convention. And I got to start meeting the headquarters staff. And since then, as an RA, we work really closely with the training team. So you get people like Kate Wingrove and Linda Miller, and there's just so many folks. The RA team with Katie and Lauren and Mona and the board team, and Jordan and Wendy on the events team. What I've been working on the convention as a volunteer these last couple of years. So you could just sort of keep going, with all these different names. There's just so many people that individually and collectively have made a positive difference to my experience. And I know oh yeah, I can't leave out Jesse Powers, obviously, even the Pathways team. And there's just so many great people. And then you go into the current board members. There are so many members on the current board and the executive team, and Aletta and Roddy, and so many folks that have made such a positive difference. And so now I feel bad that I probably left off like 64 other names that I could,
And,
but
hey,
just so many great people that made a difference.
Rob, don't feel bad. If I know you, the way I know you, the list could go from here in Las Vegas all the way to Kansas. And
Exactly.
that list is very long. And
Oh, Jesse. There's this
yeah,
guy, Jesse.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
You.
Oh,
You,
me? Okay,
you
cool.
exactly, definitely, man. Yeah, I
I,
look forward to seeing you every year, man.
I tell you, hey, likewise, my brother, likewise, because again, when I think of positive energy, when I think of always there to helping hand, Rob, you are one of those people that really stands out. And I've noticed this from many conventions, and it's like the wise words of a world champion. I see something in you. And at this time,
Right.
I know what it is.
Exactly.
All right. Again,
Appreciate that.
that list goes from Las Vegas all the way to Kansas and back. That's how big the list is for many people. And if you have a list that big, it makes a big difference for the journey with anybody in Toastmasters. All right.
Definitely.
Now, the last question I do have for you is addressed to my fans and my people, and they're called the happy people. And
Hmm.
in every episode that I do about this, they're always amazed and always enthralled about the wise words of wisdom that my guest provides, I should say. And if you were to give one more wise words of wisdom to my fans and my crew, the happy people, what would it be?
All right. I'm going to go a little bit controversial here.
Go
I'm going
for
to
it.
suggest if I imagine people who watch your show are familiar with Simon Sinek, and
Oh
I
yeah.
would take a look at Simon Sinek's YouTube page and do a search on honesty in the moment. And he talks about giving feedback a little bit, and there's like a 3-minute video. And it goes to something that a member of another club shared with me about 2 years ago that really resonated with me is that I don't think we should be giving corrective feedback in public. I actually believe that's not the best way for us to do our evaluations. I think it's great. I think there's a difference between specificity and generality. So if I tell you your speech was great and it was awesome and I loved it and blah blah blah, it doesn't really help you. Just like if I tell you, oh, your speech was too long and your conclusion was too short, that doesn't actually help you either, right? But if I
Mhm.
tell you that your opening story really resonated with me and I loved how each of your main points connected back to that opening story, that's something specific that not only that you can use, but others in the room can take and say, oh, I can improve my speech by doing that opening story that connects to my points idea that this person did. And I think it's very important that we provide positive feedback to our members. And then if there is something that like, oh, you need to fix this or this is a thing, tell them later, tell them offline because there's no rule that says the 3 minutes is supposed to be the entire verbal evaluation. It's a synopsis, right? So
True.
you provide a written one and you can also provide an offline verbal if they want it. And I've had people push back on this and say, well, I want that feedback. I said, I didn't tell you didn't get it. I just told you not to get it in public. And the reason I
Mhm.
feel this way is that I see guests' faces and I see new members fear speaking because they see, somebody like you, Jesse, an experienced speaker who notably crushes it when you're in front of an audience. If somebody gets up and finds a critique for you, like, oh, Jesse, I kind of wish you'd have looked a little more left when you were on the stage, or something really minor, that new speaker says, holy crap, they're finding problems with this guy. What are they going to find about me?
Right.
And so I push pretty hard on that. And what I've done myself is I stay positive. And if there's something that can change, but it's not a fix, but like if somebody gives a 3 main point speech a lot, I may suggest publicly that, hey, what if you tried a chronological speech? Or what if you tried a pro con or a compare contrast style of speech? Not that yours was wrong. You did a great job with this 3 points and et cetera, et cetera. But there's other options to challenge yourself. I think you can still do things like that where you just give them a different idea to approach. But when we give people fixes, I think it has a negative effect on the room. And I'll tell you really quickly because this happened to me not long ago. I was in a training where I was online like this, and we were doing a training. It was like one of those 1.5 hour sessions. And
Yeah.
every now and then people would go off into the breakout rooms. And in between, I was doing this thing. I have a second monitor. And if you see me right now, like I'm looking at my second monitor, it looks like I'm looking like way up, right?
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
so I was doing that during the presentation, and the one person who stayed back in the main room with me while they were off in a breakout told me about it. And she also told me like 5 other things I was doing well. Right now, and even that day, I couldn't tell you a single thing she told me I was doing well. I only remember that negative thing. I fixed my screens so that I wouldn't look up anymore for the rest of the presentation. And afterwards, she told me, "Oh, that looks so much better. That was, it'd been distracting, but now it's great, et cetera." But that was the only piece of feedback I remember from that. And this is a couple of years ago as a past RA. This is not my
Mhm.
first year in Toastmasters.
Yeah.
So when I thought about that, I was like, man, that stuff affects, it can affect even me, right? So I know it's affecting other members as well. So that's my word of wisdom is find a way to stay on the positive, specific side in your public verbal evaluations.
All right. And Rob, that answer, that response was a perfect bookend to a wonderful episode of the Sunday Morning Chat Series. And on behalf of all the happy people that are watching this episode, I thank you for taking the time out to be here on the Sunday Morning Chat Series with Jesse Oakley III. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
All right, and this concludes the episode of the Sunday Morning Chat Series. If you want more information about PR Connections, go to prconnectionsradio.com. But wait, there's more. If you want more episodes, more podcasts similar to this one, just go to YouTube and type up PR Connections, and you'll see a plethora of podcasts that are right there, including my own, the Sunday Morning Chat Series. But wait, there's also more. If you want more past episodes of the Sunday Morning Chat Series with Jesse Oakley III, all you have to do is go to YouTube and type up Sunday Morning Chat Series. Hit subscribe, like, comment, and share the videos. And I greatly appreciate it because we have a plethora of positive people that are making big differences. And there are so many episodes from 2020, 2021, 2024, 2025, and right here in 2026. You have so many episodes from so many people that are making big differences in the community. Stay tuned for our next episode, which will take place Sunday at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on PR Connections Radio and PR Connections on YouTube. And until then, this is Jesse Oakley III saying to all the happy people out there, take care of yourselves and have a great day. Bye.
Bye.
PR Connections Radio thanks you for watching this podcast. Check out more episodes of this show and our others at prconnectionsradio.com.